2019.
Here.
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 Joyce Siegel.
Here.
Wolfgang Torres.
Here.
Vice Chairman Modesta Platt.
Here.
Chairman Joseph Steinberg.
Here. All right, a couple of comments before we begin. First of all, welcome to our meeting tonight, the Millburn Zoning Board of Adjustment, for the meeting of February 4. Couple of brief comments. The first is, if you're here as an objector, I'm going to ask that you be kind to your neighbor who's who's the applicant, and vice versa. When we leave this room, we all need to be friends and live together in peace and harmony. At least one would hope. Secondly, if you are not happy with the results of the hearing that you're attending for tonight, you do have the right to take an appeal from the decision of this board. Now, given the strictures of the municipal ordinances in Millburn and the provisions of the municipal land use law, which is a state statute, in this town, the appeal is directly to the Superior Court of New Jersey, Law Division, sitting in the City of Newark, County of Essex. Also, I would ask that if you have one of these, or a more current model than that one, I would ask you to turn it off at this point or put it on mute. If you do receive a vibration during the evening and you know that it is a text that you must respond to, or a telephone call you need to respond to or call back, I would point out to you that there are 3 doors in this room. Please take your device, leave the room, walk to the back of the building, and in the back of the building you will have plenty of opportunity to find a private place where you can sit and make your phone call. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about tonight's agenda. The first thing is there will be no approval of minutes tonight. Secondly, there are 2 matters that we're switching the order of, and they're the last 2 on the evening. The Vogel matter will be heard last. Investors Bank votes. That's the official action of the board, but the board action must be memorialized in a formal memorializing resolution. That is always prepared by our attorney, Gail Fraser, who's seated to my right and your left, and it is reviewed by a small subcommittee and then presented to all of the board members. So the one we have on for tonight is calendar 3664-18, Sarah and Jason Singer at 177 Highland Avenue in Short Hills. That matter was heard at the last meeting, and tonight we will vote on the memorializing resolution. Although you probably don't care, on memorializing resolutions, the only people who can vote on them are those who voted in the majority at the preceding hearing when the matter was heard. So, who is eligible, Eileen, on to vote on Sarah and Jason Singer?
Mary McNett, Craig Putner, Joyce Siegel, Joseph Steinberg, Wolfgang Torres.
All right, so one of the 4 of you will have to make the motion in this particular case. Are there any additions or corrections to the memorializing resolution that was distributed to the board members prior to tonight's meeting? If not, will one of the four of you like to make a motion to approve the memorializing resolution?
Motion to adopt calendar 366418, Sarah and Jason Singer.
Second.
Mary McNabb,
Yes.
Craig Plattner.
Yes.
Joyce Siegel.
Yes.
Wolfgang Torres.
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. Now, the first matter we're hearing tonight is application calendar 3662-18, and one of our members will announce now that he is recusing on the case because he is an owner of property within 200 feet.
That is I, Craig Plattner, recusing.
We'll call you when we want you back. Thank you. All right, so once again, just for those of you who may have come late, on the agenda for tonight, the last two matters are being switched. The Vogel matter is going to be heard fourth, and the Investors Bank matter will be heard third. The matter we're hearing tonight first is David and Mara Silber at 20 Randall Drive in Short Hills.
Thank you.
You, Mr. Silber,
I am.
you have to be sworn.
I do. David Silver. Thanks. I live at 20 Randall Drive in Short Hills with my wife Mara and my two children, Harrison and Noah. We actually moved about 2 years ago from 10 Randall Drive, which is one house over. When we were seeking more space, we've actually been in front of this board before when we were at 10 Randall with a lot of the same people many, many years ago. Over the last 2 years, we've done a lot of work to the house, interior and the front yard as well. And now we're looking to do some work in the backyard, which is primarily just, out of, for the way that we use the house, it doesn't really seem to fit our needs, and it's just a bit dated. And with respect to safety and our usage, we're looking to make some changes, and that's why we're here seeking a variance. We have hired a team of people that we've worked with before that hopefully will walk you through it, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
All right, are there any questions? Just for the audience, the way we run these meetings is we hear a witness who is sworn, and then I ask the board members if they have any questions of the witness. When the board members have completed their questioning, I will ask the audience if there's anyone in the audience who has any questions. That's your cue to come forward to the microphone and keep your voice up, because these are recording microphones, not amplifying microphones. You do not have to be sworn. Keep your questions short and to the point, and when you ask your questions and they've been answered, return to your seat. At the end of the hearing, when all of the witnesses have been heard and questioned, I will then ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and make a statement. When you come forward at that time, you will have to be sworn. You will make a statement, hopefully brief and to the point, and then return to your seat. At the end of the statements, I will close the public portion of the meeting. The board members will remain in place. We will debate the matter in full view and hearing of all of you, and then someone will make a motion either to approve or to deny the matter, and the vote will be held. All right, that's the way we'll proceed. Is there anyone in the audience? I don't hear any questions of this witness by members of the board. Anyone in the audience have any questions for David Silver, the applicant? There are none. Next witness.
Thank you.
Come forward and be sworn, please. State your name and address.
I do. Antoine, Antone. Last name is Hajar, Hajjar.
Now, are you appearing as an expert witness here?
Yes, sir. I'm a professional engineer.
All right, I need you to give us the benefit of your education and your experience so as to give us the opportunity to qualify you as as an expert witness in engineering.
You're
Sure.
appearing only as an engineer this evening.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay?
I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, a master's degree in civil. I have a bachelor's degree in surveying. I've been a professional engineer since 2004 and a professional land use surveyor since 2012.
Have you appeared before other boards?
Yes, I did. I have. I appeared before Edison, Kingwood, and I'm actually the township engineer over at Raritan Township.
For
So
which township?
Raritan. So I'm their board engineering expert for Board of Adjustment and Planning Board.
Any other questions from board members? Your qualifications are accepted
Thank you.
as a professional engineer. If you're going to, you can either work from that microphone. If you're going to work from there, there is a microphone hopefully somewhere over there.
I could do it from here. Do you want me to move the board closer to you, or?
Can I see a show of hands of people in the audience who are here on this particular matter? Okay, I think it would be better if you came forward, sir, and sat in the first row so that you could really see that drawing.
And we have this big copy right here.
Oh, you have a copy there? Okay, fine. Proceed.
Okay, so the property in question is 20 Randall Road. It's lot 6 in block 3703, as shown on the tax map sheet number 37. So the first plan that The first plan I'm going over is the existing condition, demolition, and tree removal plan. It's the one that was in your packet, sheet 1, dated November 8, 2018, with no revision dates on it. So, let me see if this works. Oh, here we go. So I have a property that has an irregular shape, especially the backyard. It's narrow on one side, the southeasterly side, approximately 50 feet, and it runs about 55 feet to the west. And then the rear property line diverges to the in the easterly direction, and the backyard line on the northwesterly side becomes 120 feet. I have a steep slopes in the front yard, which we're not disturbing, and steep slopes in the back. So the elevation difference between the road and the dwelling due to the incline is approximately 7 feet, which buffers the rear yard. In addition, the berm in the back, which gradually slopes up, the elevation difference between the rear yard and the highest point of the berm is about approximately 8 feet. As far as the existing improvements that are on the site, we have a circular driveway in the front and a drive to the garage, a driveway to the garage. We have a 2-story frame dwelling and swimming pool and a patio around it. And in addition, we have a couple of small walls, one here and one along the driveway. So at this point, I would like to turn over to Mr. Keller to go over the zoning ordinance.
Okay, Keller, you're appearing as a planner here tonight.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Want to give us the benefit of your education and experience?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I was licensed as a planner in 1990. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University with a declared concentration in water resources and environmental engineering. I also hold a master's degree with a concentration in urban planning and design and that is from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where I was also an adjunct professor, both graduate and undergraduate divisions for approximately 11 years. I have appeared before this board, the planning board, as well as about 110 boards throughout the state of New Jersey, and my licenses are in good effect.
Your qualifications as a planner are accepted by this board.
Thank you. One of the things we took a look at, we noticed an inconsistency in the setback not being parallel and concentric with the front street line, and its location where it was taken, and an area discrepancy. And also, Millburn is somewhat unique in our determination of rear yard coverages. We're the only town in the world, I think, that has a rear yard unoccupied requirement. And we make distinctions between what kind of coverages we have in the backyard. And so what we did is we obtained the CAD file and we went back through and we did a zoning analysis and we came up with some different numbers. So I'm going to pass those numbers out to you today. None of the extent of the variance relief actually gets decreased, not increased. But I do want to go over that with you.
Has a copy of what you've just passed out been delivered to our board secretary?
Yes,
Am I marking this as A1?
this would be A1, correct. One of the things that we went through was, because we don't count sidewalks in the rear as part of accessory coverage. They are part of rear yard coverage, they're part of rear yard unoccupied, and they're part of your total lot coverage, but they're not considered accessory because they're not used as accessory. And we went through with that lens, which is standard zoning procedure for our zoning officer, Ms. Davitt. We came up with existing lot coverage was actually 9992. There was some actually double counting of some square footage. There was 9992, which is 34.8. So we're very close to the permitted 35% in the existing condition. In the proposed condition, we go up to 10,332 square feet. That's consistent with the application that you had before you. So it was only the existing that changed, and that is at 35.9%. That is a variance where 35% is permitted. We're at 35.9, so it's 0.9%. It's in excess of 271 square feet, or as Mr. Steinberg likes to put it, it's 2.7% over what's permitted. More importantly, the accessory coverage is what changed in the proposed condition, I think in both. Under the accessory coverage, we have a rear yard that's actually 14,344 square feet. Accordingly, under the existing conditions, we have 2,555 square feet. That is 17.81%, where 20% is permitted in the R4 zone. On the proposed condition, we have 20.8%, which is 2,978. That's an increase of 423 square feet over what exists today, and results in a variance of 109 square feet, or 0.8% over. From 20 to 20.8 is 0.8%, or if as a function of what's permitted, the Joe Steinberg calculation is 3.8% above what's permitted. I did want to also point out, because the drawing labels, if you've been to the site, you see there's just about a 4-foot deck on the rear northwesterly portion of the building. That deck actually, we counted as an accessory structure. That deck is actually 4 feet. It's really a circulation element that takes us from the double sliding doors and the single door and gets you down into the lower level of terracing patios in the backyard. So that deck, we counted that as accessory, but certainly in my discussions with Eileen Davitt, our zoning officer, she said that really could be excluded because it's not used to barbecue, it's not used to congregate, it's really a walk. We thought it was a gray area, so we left it, but I would point out that if we take that little deck out, and you know, we're not talking about it doesn't take much change in square footage to get a big swing of percent. So if we take that little deck out, we actually drop to a proposed condition of 20.2%, which is 2891, which means we're only in excess by 22 square feet. So we're very close to what's permitted in terms of accessory use, and I would point out that rear yard unoccupied remains significantly under where 25% is required. We're at 38.4%. So as the metric that we use to determine whether a backyard is overly intensified, we're significantly under. We've got a lot of area in the backyard. for these existing and proposed structures to exist. I would point out on this that the pool is remaining. The entire, we're not starting with a new pool, we're modifying the existing pool. What's also, I think, relevant, and I'll just reinforce before I turn it back to the engineer if he's into the comments, is that the property is actually 28,746 square feet. What's unusual about it is that it's very wide, and because it has that 12-foot of grade change from the curb up to the finished floor, and then you drop another 10 feet down to the garage, you've got a garage under condition. And with that garage under condition, it's smart because it takes advantage of the natural topography on the property, but it also means to get around those, to get enough run to get up to a serviceable area, you have a very long driveway in the front, and then you have another driveway that services the rear. What happens is, for a property this size, we actually have a very large amount of front yard coverage, and that front yard coverage is what's driving the overall lot coverage variance. So I think it's important to notice some of the existing conditions. Very wide house, properly side-facing garage, a long driveway to manage the grade, so the longer it is, the less steep it is, so it's safe coming up to a drop-off point back down. The driveway is only about 14 feet at its nominal dimension. It stands low, so it's not an overly large driveway. It's not a driveway we can remove square footage from, but it is a large driveway that represents, I believe it was approximately 2,425 square feet of total lot area, and that's driving some of the variance relief. I'm going to let the attorney finish up, and then we'll talk about the supplemental landscape. I would, guess since I've got the floor, I'll do A2 real quickly. Just in case the landscape architect wants to use it in my photo boards. This is A2, it's photo board number 1. Photographs 1 through 4 were taken by Casey and Keller, myself on February 1st, 2019, of last week, as you can tell by the snow. It was about 0 degrees, so my hands were shivering. Lots 2 through 6 were taken by Simon Fay Landscape on September 24th, 2018. And other than the fact that it's no longer green out there, it's a little more snow on it, they do accurately represent the site as it exists today. And the reason I show these photographs again is to show that there's the side driveway to get under the garage under, photograph number 1. Photograph number 2, we're looking up the right side of the driveway. You can see it climb steeply, and it's pulled far away to lessen that slope. One thing you can see on both of these photographs is because of the grade change, as well as the location of the home, none of these proposed improvements can be seen from the street. You may see a portion of Cabana from photograph number 2, but it's significantly recessed and it's got a lot of grade change, and then we've got supplemental landscaping. The rear of the property, photograph number 3, on the right side is that little deck I was talking about, which is 4 feet wide and runs along the house to allow for 2 means of egress to get down into the lower patio. You can see the terracing of the patios. One of the things the applicant is looking to do is kind of get rid of that wall in the middle, which is a tripping hazard, a falling hazard, so close, so create a single or a better defined series of levels throughout the rear patio, like we're looking to talk about. Photograph number 4 is looking to the southeast across the pool from where the cabana would go, and you can see this is winter, and you can see there's very dense landscaping already. We really don't need a supplemental landscaping plan, but we are providing one. Photograph number 4 is we're now looking from the side of the house, looking into the backyard, and you can see there's dense planting, so you cannot see the home behind. That is also sort of photograph number 4. It's dense evergreen landscaping. And then at photograph number 6, this is looking towards the northwest. You can see fence in the distance, a relatively dense buffer of trees. There's no development on that side. We are removing some of the patio along the right side of this picture, trying to get some of those square footages down. But essentially, we're regularizing it, sprucing up the existing pool, and we're not changing any of that buffer to the property to the northwest, either at the corner or the property fronting on Hartshorn, to be in the back of this photograph right here. That's the existing conditions and the changes to the zoning. I'll turn it back over. Joe, it's up to you. Do you want me to answer questions now, or we'll answer them together?
Why don't we answer them together?
Sheet 2 of the submission is basically the variance site plan dated November 8, 2018 with no revision. So what we're proposing is a three-sided open pavilion at this point. Approximate square footage is 234 square feet. Has a chimney in the back, or fireplace chimney. And there's a storage area of approximately 75 square feet in the back of it, and it's enclosed. What we're also proposing is removal of the patio along this berm to decrease the impervious coverage. And we're adding a little bit of patio in this area and this area to provide good circulation around the pool. We also retrofitting or upgrading the patio in this area for safety reasons because the steps is very close to the swimming pool. And finally, what we're proposing in the back here is a 2-foot wall along the northwest sideline property. So 2-foot wall to level this area to provide a lawn area or play area for the children. And along from this point to this point and this point to this point is the 2-foot wall that goes to 0 grade. That's the actual proposal of this application.
All right, questions from board members? Of either of the two witnesses or both of them? I have just one question that I'll start off with. Mr. Keller, you went too quickly for me. I'm looking at paragraph 10, where you had previously, or whoever made this out, previously gave the maximum lot coverage is 35%. That remains the same. The existing is
In terms of percentage or square foot?
percentage.
Percentage existing is 34.8,
And the proposed is,
35.9.
that remains the same.
That remains the same as in the application too.
Now, does the 34.8, does that take into, I'm sorry, that's a different issue. Let's turn to the second one, maximum accessory rear yard coverage. The permitted is maximum 20%,
20% of the rear yard, correct?
right? And the existing is,
17.81%.
and that takes into account taking off that rear,
No, I'm still counting the deck.
you're still counting the deck.
Counting the deck.
And so that's 17.81. And the
Existing, correct?
and the proposed is,
20.8.
20.8%.
Correct.
where maximum is 20%.
Correct.
So you're 0.8% over.
That's correct.
Proposed accessory coverage?
That's proposed accessory coverage, yes.
Mary, you had your hand up.
I did, yes. Mr. Keller, if we could go back to photo board 1. Can you, is there any place on that board that illustrates where these 14 trees are coming down?
No, I would really probably do it in tandem if Tony wants to indicate which of these are visible that are coming down. There's a number of pine trees that are being removed, I think probably.
So to level this area, and to make it workable, we're removing the trees listed on sheet 1.
Right, I saw that.
And, you know, subject to the township arborist, we're providing a replacement of 19 trees along the northwesterly boundary.
Okay. My question is that Mr. Keller referred to the density of the foliage.
I did, yeah. I didn't realize that many were coming out. So the density on photograph number 6, I would say that a number of those trees are coming out, So I would probably refer to the landscape architect supplemental plan to show, obviously this is all subject to the approval of the township forester.
Understood.
But, yeah, I would leave it then to the landscape architect to show how that's being supplemented with the replacement trees.
So furthering that question, how does that impact on the neighbor's property?
Well, I would expect, based upon our discussions with the landscape architect, that they feel that despite the removal of the existing trees in that area, that they'll be able to adequately buffer out any visibility into that area.
While we're on that subject, is the existing fence on this property?
Yes, there's fencing all around the property.
Is the existing fence going to remain on the northwest side of the property?
That's correct, it's remaining. And just to supplement Mr. O'Carroll's, on sheet 2, again, we are proposing, actually, sheet 3 will show it better. We are proposing 19 green giant trees for screening purposes, 8 to 10 feet. When we plant them.
And they're all going to be in that area?
That's the screen, that neighbor.
So-
Plus there's additional landscaping besides that.
But, I think I'm looking at the same schematic that you are, and I'm seeing 13 trees. Does each of these circles represent one tree, or how
Well,
does that work?
I don't know if,
The 14
1,
trees.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's a note that says 19 trees, and again, the township arborist will have to verify that,
Okay.
but we're proposing 19 trees, not 13.
And the other 6 are the other 3 are down at the bottom of the list on page 1.
Yeah,
I see, I missed that the first time around.
yes.
I have a question. As was mentioned, your numbers are very close in a lot of things, like lot coverage, rear yard unoccupied. Why can't it just work? Like, why does it have to have that much paving around the pool, essentially? I don't
You wanna address
understand.
that?
What's the reason for the variance?
I mean,
I'm
again,
missing it.
we remove wherever we can,
Yeah.
but we trying to make it pedestrian safe as well.
Well, how does, if you go to the sheet of the proposed, I'm gonna ask you, like, there are a couple areas, how does that qualify as pedestrian safe? I guess it's that sheet, no, I'm sorry, that sheet that you have, the one you had, I'm sorry. The one
Sheet
that-
3 or
yeah,
2?
This is the
no,
grading,
sheet,
this is site plan.
yeah, that sheet too, okay.
Okay.
The area of pave that's along, I guess, the furthest back from the pool, and then it kind of jogs out, and it's
Yeah.
like 100 feet long, and then like maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. Yeah, why, how does that become safer? And then the other area,
Well,
like,
what we wanna do is, based on the exposure of the sun, so in the morning, they could have their own chairs on this side, and maybe in the afternoon, turn them over to the other side, so we have enough room. That's basically the concept of it.
and then what about the area that's behind, see the circle part
Yeah.
of the pool? And then it jogs out there too, what's that for? Is that also sunbathing?
It's based on bathing, but this is to make it symmetric.
I guess my question is, did you ever, like, I don't understand, why doesn't it just go in the numbers, like, what's the big need?
Again, the objective is to provide, so everybody could walk around the pool, you know, not walking on grass or mud, you know, that's the only reason. I mean, we removed quite a bit along the berm.
So it's not it's an oversized lot, it's not an undersized lot, so I'm trying to find the hardship.
That's correct, but the issue again, like Mr. Keller suggested, is most of your impervious coverage is in the front because of the asphalt part of it.
I understood.
And we meet the, which one is that, the, rear yard vacant?
Unoccupied, right.
Yeah,
I will say, I talked to my client earlier, because I have to provide the proofs. And I think we have good proof for the total lot coverage variance, but I do find it a little thin on the accessory coverage. And I think that we can reduce the patio sufficient to be 20%. So we'd like to, on the fly, indicate that we're gonna eliminate enough square footage of patio to be compliant with the rear yard coverage and eliminate the variance for accessory coverage.
Which you're now withdrawing.
We're withdrawing that variance.
That 609(1)(c) is being withdrawn.
That's correct. So we are,
So
we
you're
are,
now down to one variance.
Right.
Which is your maximum lot coverage.
Yep.
And I assume that your proofs are primarily that you have a tremendous amount of driveway and ramp that you need.
which is necessary given the topography and the configuration of the home. I think at that point, if we're compliant with rear yard accessory, it's certainly way under our rear yard unoccupied, I think it's hard to say it's an overdevelopment of the rear yard. We did want to provide, I have clients who don't want to do the Hamptons look because they don't feel it's safe for the kids to run from pavement onto grass area, so we didn't want to pave grass up along the entire back. We also did talk about removing a little section in here to just have a 3-foot walk around, but as the engineer was saying, in most of the sun, these chairs are gonna be in shade from the home. It isn't until the afternoon that you might get some areas up in the dining area. So we wanted to keep a little bit of an area over on the north side, nestled in below the steep slopes, so you could drag a couple of lawn chairs there and get daily sun. But either way, I think we can remove a portion of the pavement to the west side, sufficient enough that we would come in at 20% and eliminate that variance.
And is there any way mathematically for you to tell us now how that will affect maximum lot coverage?
Yes.
I mean, if you need a minute or two to work out the math.
My total lot coverage would then, well, my total lot coverage, I'm sorry, would drop 20 square feet. 1 second, 22 over this number here. 22. It drops it down to, round off ours, I was at, takes it down to 35.87,
Instead of 35.9.
0.94.
How many square feet did that remove? 20?
That really is about 22 to 23 square feet. And that would eliminate, in my discussions with the zoning officer, would eliminate the need for an accessory coverage variance.
So you're down to a maximum lot coverage where permitted is 35%, and you're proposing 35.87?
Correct.
So it's 8/700ths of 1%
Correct. I'm over by 249 square feet on the entire lot.
on the entire lot.
Correct.
Any other questions from board members of either of these witnesses? Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions of either of these two witnesses?
Board Chairman, my name is Francis J. Costenbader. I'm appearing on behalf of Robert and Barbara McGinn.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Costenbader.
Thank you.
And you're appearing on
I'm
behalf
appearing
of?
on behalf of Robert and Barbara McGinn. They're lot 4. They're 350, I think they're 325 Hartshorn. And their only concern was, they're in Florida right now. They've been in Florida since the beginning of January, and they're not due back until probably sometime in April. So they asked me to appear on their behalf.
And you have any questions for these?
Well, this, on the one
You'll have to speak up so we can hear you up here.
The fencing along here, this fence, that's the McGinn's fence.
Well, this is a silt fence. This is just when they do the excavation here to put that wall in to prevent soil from going in onto the main.
They thought that meant their fence.
No, this is a silt fence.
So that's not gonna affect their fencing.
No, absolutely not.
And the other issue they had was with this wall, there was this wall drainage discharge. And they were concerned about that creating a problem on their property.
Well, this is a 2-foot wall, 5 feet away from the property in accordance with the ordinance. And what we do is basically put 3 poles into the wall or a piece of pipe behind the wall to prevent from the wall blowing up. And it's gonna drain the way it was draining before. It's not. It's just any water that sits behind the wall is gonna drain towards actually the street, going this way.
Where it says wall drain discharge.
That's correct. So it's draining this way. As you see the topographic map, it's going this way towards the street. It's not gonna affect your property.
Any other questions from the audience of either of these two witnesses?
I just want to clarify that your plans don't show the McGinn fence, correct?
It shows silk fence on
No.
the tree removal
The
plan.
McGinns say they have a fence on their property. Your plans do not reflect that fence, correct?
Let me just make sure. The fence is reflected on sheet 2.
On sheet what?
Sheet 2 of 3. I mean, the fence appears to be on our property as well. It's like about a foot away from the property line on our property.
Where do you see that on sheet 2?
It's really on sheet one.
It's actually shown on sheet 1.
On sheet
It's
1?
also shown on sheet 1 as well, yeah.
Oh, also, if you look on sheet 2, there's in small
says
wood,
wood
small
fence.
letters, you see the wood.
Wood fence. I asked that question initially as
That
to
was the
whose
same.
fence is that? Do you know?
I mean, look, part of it is on our property. I don't know for sure whose fence it is.
You didn't do a survey specifically to determine whose property that fence is on?
Well, it shows you on our property.
It's-
Where does the good side of the fence face?
It shows to their property, to the subject premises,
The good side,
the good side. So it appears
which
that,
suggests that it's your client's fence.
correct. This is a wooden fence. That's a wooden fence.
Which means that part of it may be encroaching on the
But
neighbor's
it's probably
property.
been there for years.
Again, we're not proposing to remove that fence.
Okay,
Well, that's what we're-
thank you. I'm looking at I don't want to beat this to death, but I'm looking at sheet 1, and I see the word silt, S-I-L-T, fence. What does that mean?
This is the silk fence. This is the soil erosion prevention from when we put the foundation of that wall 5 feet away from the property to prevent any soil from going to the
Oh,
neighbor.
so that's,
Right, that's gonna,
That's a
the
temporary
township
fence.
That's a
engineer,
temporary fence,
right,
correct.
township engineer is gonna require that,
yeah, but that's a temporary fence.
correct.
That's correct, yeah.
The wood fence is in very faint lettering.
Yeah, I see that. Now, is there maybe this question was asked previously, but is there anything on any of your drawings that show the exact location of the replacement trees? I think you asked that.
Yeah, the replacement tree is shown on sheet 3. And again, we have 13 circles instead of 19, but,
There's 19 trees.
yeah, it will be 19 trees.
Oh, I see. And, but there's a line from the words Green Giant Arborvitae, 19, there's a line that appears to direct itself in a southeasterly direction, I
Yeah,
guess.
it shows it 1-3 and it's typical. So,
So it's going to be between the wood fence and the
and the wall.
wall.
Yeah,
Is there enough room in there?
yeah, that's 5 feet. Those trees are small and long, and the landscape architect will talk about them.
Is the landscape architect here tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience of these two witnesses? Next witness.
Wait, before we do that, I just want to clarify. You know, there's different terminology. So who calls it a pool house? It's a veranda with a fireplace. Basically, we're talking about an open-air pavilion with a fireplace and an enclosed storage area.
That's correct.
Okay.
I know, 3 different terminologies.
All the different terminology.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what we're talking about here. So
Okay.
we're all on the same page. Open-air pavilion with a fireplace and enclosed storage. Okay.
Do you
Open
have
three
a
sides. Correct.
question about the height of that?
Just as we had noticed, just a question, I mean, you discussed the density of the, you know, of the trees and that it couldn't be seen from neighbors' properties. But in walking the site, it did appear that in the far right corner, that the tree coverage there might not be sufficient to block the view of the house on the other side, especially given that the structure is, you know, some, 10 feet tall or so, if I recall.
So we have a landscape plan, so Bob Hessel.
Okay,
Present
so
the
let's hear
landscape.
Mr. Hassel, and then the other witnesses are still available. Come forward, please, and be sworn.
I have some more exhibits too. I do. Robert Hessels, Hessels. I'm a graduate of Rutgers University, licensed landscape architect since 1999. I've been practicing landscape architecture for almost 25 years. I've testified just in front of this board a couple months ago in regards to another project. Testified in front of various boards through various counties on landscaping, and that's
Your qualifications are accepted as a landscape architect, so will you proceed to tell us what you propose to do here?
What do you want to mark, Mr. Hessels? Let's mark it all at the same time.
Well, these two boards don't exist, so
So we'll do 1A3, identify the title box.
A3 is rendering reference.
And it's sheet L1?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's a typo, so they're both L1s.
Oh, okay. And what's the date on that?
The date is 1/31. 1/31.
Okay.
19.
So we'll do A3 and A4.
A4. And
And A4,
A4
what
is
are,
the actual planting plan.
planting plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll put this up here. I also prepared 11 by 17 copies for everyone.
Great, we love that.
That's good.
Mr. Keller doesn't do that with his photo board, but we appreciate all the other professionals. Hint, hint.
Yeah, this way it's.
I think I heard a dig there.
Yep.
Thank you.
You could just give us a pile and we'll pass them down. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like a copy? There's more if needed. Do we have enough up top?
Okay,
Okay. So basically what we prepared was a 3D virtual image of what the backyard project would look like. In hearing the discussions,
Time out a second. I'm gonna mark this too as A5, because this has pictures in it,
okay,
and those boards don't. So this will be
Apologize.
A5.
yes.
Thank you.
now the very first page, is that,
The very first page is what you see up on the stand, and that is purely a reference page.
that references the renderings that follow. So if you look at the directions, for example, in number 1, and if you go to turn the page, and on the bottom right, it says number 1, that would be the photo image of what's being proposed in the project, of what Mr. Hajar and Mr. Heller already discussed. I think after hearing what the board's comments were, the two critical images would be looking at image number 2 across the yard. And then you can see from, also, this is added, enhanced from Mr. Heller's images of the actual pictures, but we also propose to put a whole grouping of Norway spruce to that already heavily buffered area.
Where, you said that already buffered area. Be more specific.
On the northwest property line. So if you want to look at image number 12 and jump, that would be from the neighbor to the right if you're facing the front of the house. So we took an image looking back and then enhanced that with the proposed landscaping of what that neighbor would be seeing with the newly proposed trees, as well as the existing wooded area as well. So you can faintly see a little bit of the roof of the existing house, and a small little image based on the pavilion area. These trees are shown at 10 to 12 feet in height in the renderings. Norway spruce will get up to 60, 70, 80 feet tall. There's also enhanced landscape that's going to be underneath that as well. Also, another image that had come up was the property on the northeast side. So if you would be looking at image number 11. So unfortunately, I did not render in the fence, which I kind of really wish we would. But that basically takes out, removes the existing wooded area that currently is there. You can see the proposed, those are the proposed arborvitaes, which are basically the columnar trees that you see that sort of run in a line along the property. You can faintly see the proposed wall. Within there, you'll see just a little bit of it. In front of that, there's also some large viburnum and some other heavy evergreen plantings to propose further screen. So you can pretty much, when you look at that view, on top of the fact that the existing fence is going to remain, there's an extremely strong buffer area presented there as well.
So the fence is gonna be on this side of the
The fence is in front of those arborvitaes,
Okay.
yes. So that will remain, and then again, arborvitaes, the proposed height are 8 to 10 feet in height. They'll grow 20, 25 feet and more, and they are very narrow, so they can fit easily within that 5-foot buffer without like overcrowding and starting to push into everything else and then getting undermined. And also, another item to point out, the use of green giant arborvitaes, as we all know, in Short Hills and the surrounding area is a little bit deer heaven. Plus, they also have their choice of, basically gourmet food around here. So green giants are deer-resistant plant material as well. To enhance that lower screening space. The other images, as if going through them, are basically conceptual in nature of what the pavilion would look like, the open air pavilion that we just discussed. That's going to be open on 3 sides with a fireplace and a sitting area. Very heavily landscaped on all sides. So you can see it from image number 4. You can see again from another angle, image number 5. I did not do any images from the road looking back. Mr. Heller, with his pictures I think shows, and the elevation change of the property versus the road, how, you know, how pretty much screened out that's gonna be in itself on top of what we added for landscaping. And in essence, I mean, the rest is, you know, just beautiful perennials and items like that for the homeowner. You know, just an aesthetic. So at this point, I'd like to just open it to questions.
Mr. Costenbader, you got a copy of this? Thank you.
Let me lead off the questioning here. I'm looking at the corner of the property, which I guess is the northeast corner. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles in that corner.
Yes.
Tell us again what those represent.
Those are the Norway spruce that we were proposing. This is a much larger evergreen tree. We have more room to work there. That also addresses an issue that came up earlier about that back right corner. I think somebody had brought that up.
Yeah.
So you can see that the evergreens are wrapped around that corner to really screen that out, because that was a slight open area. The advantage to that space, again, Norway spruce are extremely deer resistant, hardy to, you know, a shade area, because this is also going to remain wooded as well. So they'll just offer the dense evergreen screening from
What's the
on top
height
of
of those
existing.
trees when they're planted?
Proposed, we have 8 to 10 feet.
Above the ball?
There's no wall on that side.
Above the
No,
ball?
above the root ball.
Yes, excuse me, sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought you had
said
said
wall.
10 to 12 feet. They're gonna be 8 to 10?
They're 8 to 10, yeah, my mistake.
The last page of that presentation shows some of the height and
Okay.
Yeah, we have the heights labeled, and again, if you go back to image number 12, the rendered image adding the spruce, you can get a feel for, those are actual spruce trees, what they would look like planted, and then they grow from there, up to 60 to 80 feet tall.
What is the rate of growth on the arborvitae and the spruce?
The arborvitae will grow like a foot to 18 inches a year, the spruce the same.
What you've shown in picture number 12, is that how they look when they're planted?
That's how they're gonna look when they're planted. Yeah, so we took an elevation, off of Mr. Hajar's plan, and basically, you know, unfortunately, the shadow angle that we picked doesn't really depict the bottom, but there is a grade change because the property to the right and to the left are lower than the subject's property. So at 8 to 10 feet, you know, you have the grade advantage, and then as well as the planting. You can see when you get to the top, it opens up obviously a little bit because of the pyramidal shape, but over time, they grow a little bit more natural and upright, and that pyramidal pruned, you know, initial landscape shape sort of goes away unless it's Rockefeller Center.
Any other questions from board members? Any other questions of this witness from members of the audience?
Picture 11,
Yes.
is that the view that the McGinns would have? Doesn't show a fence or anything.
Yes, unfortunately, I did not show the fence. The fence is going to remain, so there'll be a fence in front of that, and the trees will be another 4 feet above when initially planted. The
Okay,
fence.
but this would basically be the view that the McGinns would
That
have.
would be their view, yeah. So it's gonna be heavily screened, that side. Okay?
You have to come forward to the microphone, please. State your name.
Francis Mark Antonio. I just have a quick question about the 5 feet. Is that between that drainage wall and the trees and the fences, is that enough room for, because you're talking about it 2.5 feet from the fence is where these trees will be planted?
2.5 foot on center, you're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, from
Is
there.
that okay?
And it is. For
Yeah.
green giants, They
I know
grow
they're
very,
narrow,
very
yeah.
narrow, very columnar in shape, and, you know, they'll just grow tight and fill that space in and make that one solid green wall.
Mhm. And that wall won't interfere with the root structure from
No, not
that
at all.
plant? No?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions from the audience of this witness? Any other witnesses?
Just a brief wrap-up on the.
Well, before you wrap up, I have a question of the engineer.
Sure.
Tell us the height of that building. I'm not gonna characterize it because.
Pavilion.
Pavilion.
It's 15 feet from ground to the highest peak,
What about the chimney?
and the chimney extends another 3 feet on top of that. So 18, the chimney is at 18 feet, and the building is 15.
Is there any way that height can be reduced?
I didn't design the building.
There's a building code issue as to how tall a chimney needs to be over the roof. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what it is. I would point out that the 18 feet complies, and actually even on accessory structures, chimneys can exceed the allowable height by a certain distance. So we're considerably less, but I'd be hesitant without an architect here to commit to lower than that, 'cause it may not be code worthy.
Is the pavilion like a prefab, or is there an architect that's designing it?
Anybody know?
No, it's being designed.
Come forward, and you have to be sworn, I'm sorry. Mr. Silver, can you answer the question?
Yes, we've worked with somebody to design the pavilion. It will be built at the site.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
It will be built at the site.
It's
We've
gonna
worked
be
with somebody to
stick-built,
design it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not going
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Is there anyone in the audience who has a statement he or she would like to make with respect to this application? I hear none and I see none. I will close the public portion of the meeting. Board members, we have heard that one of the two variances being, requested in the paperwork has been withdrawn. So we're only talking now about maximum lot coverage, where 35% of the lot is maximum lot coverage. And as I understand it, 35.87 is being requested, so that the variance that's being requested is 8,700.
I'm a little confused, because the original handout said there were two variants, and now according to the sheet that was handed out, it looks like it was 4 and then it was down to 3. So how many variances and what exactly are they?
Or wait a minute, is there a motion to reopen the public portion of the meeting? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
I believe we only started with 2 variances,
That's right.
one for lot coverage and one for accessory coverage.
Right.
We've eliminated the accessory coverage, so now the only one remaining is the lot coverage at 35.87%.
And what about the building coverage? That's 13.1 when you're allowed 13.
You're allowed 14, and this is an
Oh, the
R4 zone.
14, I'm sorry. So the only one that we're looking at is lot coverage.
Lot coverage, yeah.
Board members, any comments? Anyone care to make a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mary McNabb,
Yes.
Julie Sharma,
Yes.
Joyce Segal,
Yeah.
Wolfgang Torres,
Yes.
Jessica Black,
Yes.
Steinberg.
Yes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, the next-
Rich, could you send Craig back? Thank you.
Where's the
Remember to take. Thank you. You're welcome.
I thought he had donuts too. When he first walked up, I was like, cool. Oh my God, how funny is that?
I missed that.
Eileen and I both thought that box was a box of donuts.
Oh, I
It's
know.
a Staples box.
Okay. Mr. Pledner has returned, so we can proceed with the next case. Now, on this next case, I have just a couple of comments. This case has been the subject of much discussion and debate over the weekend involving myself, our vice chair, and our attorney, and yes, even an expert or two beyond those three individuals, because the issue here was one of what is known in the law as res judicata, which in Latin means the matter has been decided. And the issue that we were wrestling with was, what do you do about a case where, as is true in the next case, the matter was heard fully in 2016, was approved by this board, and through circumstances personal to the owners, the project was never built. The original resolution, a copy of which I have here, did have a condition that the project had to be built within a certain period of time. The applicants were protected by a state statute, which was called the Permit Extension Act, but unfortunately for them, it ran out, and they still didn't build the project within the period of time that was stated in the condition to the approval. So the question really tonight was, what do you do in a case like that? Do you take the position that, well, the matter has been decided, res judicata, and therefore there's no need to hear the case, but it was pointed out to me very sagely that if you take that position, then anyone who violates the time period set forth in the resolution, which is 365 days, could just ignore it, because res judicata, the matter has been decided. So it was suggested to me that the applicants really brought the wrong application before this board tonight, and their application should have been to simply excise the original 365 days and impose a new 365-day provision in the new resolution. But we're stuck with what we've got, and we need to get rid of this case once and for all. So in light of the fact that the application that was made was a zoning application, we're going to hear it as if it were a zoning application. If the applicants choose to, they can tell us in their sworn testimony that this board, has already acted on this matter. If they choose to, they can tell the board, if it is true that the application is identical to the one that was brought in 2016, they can tell us, if it is true, that the neighbors' homes on the three sides of them, on the left, right, and in the rear, are identical to what they were in 2016, but we are going to hear the case again because we're faced not with an application to excise a 365-day provision and reinstate a new one. We have before us an application for variances. So, having said that and given you a little background as to what's been going on over the weekend, which has eaten into a lot of the time of some of us who've been involved in this, including our attorney and myself, I will call the next case, which is Asmani at 37 Tennyson. Come forward, please.
I do. Shilpa Vaswani, last name Vaswani.
Shilpa is Shilpa.
Yes.
Daniel, my last name is Ensign, E-N-C-I.
And you are
Architect.
an architect. We'll get to you and you'll have to give us your qualifications, but Ms. Asmani, please proceed.
Hi, good evening. So we moved, me and my husband and 2 kids moved into this town about 5 years ago. And, we basically wanted to have an addition to accommodate the need of elderly parents who live with us. So we had filed for a variance. It got approved in 2016. And then my mother actually fell very ill, and we got very busy with taking care of her needs. So we couldn't move forward with the project. And so we are here actually presenting what was already previously approved, but actually a smaller version of that. We've eliminated some of the, Dan will explain that better. But whatever was approved in 2016, we are requesting something that's lesser than what was approved. And we couldn't move forward because of the family health reasons. And we are hoping that, we will get the approval to move forward. And Dan can present the rest.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board members of this witness? Anyone in the audience have any questions of this witness? Next witness.
My name's Daniel Ensign. I'm the principal of Mendham Design Architects. I have been a registered and licensed architect since 2007. I hold a Bachelor of Architecture degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've presented in front of this board a variety of times, as well as adjacent municipalities, Harding Township, Chatham Township, and other surrounding areas.
Your qualifications as an architect are accepted. Proceed.
As Shilpa said, going through this, one thing that they have had is the benefit over time of the time that's transpired in between here of actually getting bids on the project and understanding what the cost of construction is. And so the slight reductions that she's talking about are basically derived from that in an effort to make the project a little more feasible from a cost standpoint. So what I was going to do is go through the differences between the previous to the new and just point out what those reductions are. The variances we're requesting are exactly the same from that end in terms of maximum building coverage that's allowable and also the combined side yard setback.
Proceed. By the way, I didn't say this before. If you have an interest in any case, I'm now addressing myself to the audience. Please, when the case is called, come forward so that you can sit in the front row, which is empty on both sides of the room, and see the exhibits and hear the testimony very clearly. Okay, proceed. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
So looking on sheet A1, and these are identical to what was
Right, no need to mark it.
Okay. So the shaded area in the rear is the area in question. So there's an existing single-story family room, kind of very small and long in the back of the existing house. And essentially what's being proposed is to encapsulate that space and across the rear of the house construct a two-story addition. That two-story addition on the first floor consists of a kitchen and a little bit larger family room area than we currently so it's more living space. And then on the right side of that addition is a small in-law suite, which consists of a reasonably sized bedroom, a closet, and a small bathroom. The reasoning behind, or the reason why the building permit variance was asked for initially, and why it was at the first floor as opposed to saying, well, why don't you put the bedroom up at the second level, because we have additional floor area and other things we could use, is because of ambulatory issues for an elderly parent. So there is no ability to get up the stairs or work with that kind of situation, so it is positioned at the first floor. The changes from the original are previously this one-car garage to the left side of the house. Part of that application was to remove the end wall of it and push the wall over approximately, I'm not sure if it was 18 inches or 2 feet, to increase the size of the garage and give a little bit more size for clearance into the house with a wheelchair or something else they might need. It's really from the benefit of time and being able to bid everything. Some of those small elements have been removed from the application. So now there is no suggested change to the existing garage structure. This little bump, or the corner that you see in the back of the house, is pre-existing, and it's a little bit of a strange piece on the house. In the previous application, we were talking about essentially extending a foundation out from that, so the wall of the addition was consistent with that bump. As we've talked about further with contractors and looked at the construction aspect of it, that expansion of the foundation and breaking out of that existing foundation is a costly item, and so that has also been removed. So that foot 2 feet foot sliver that was previously expanded out is no longer being expanded out. So that's part of what accounts again for the reduction in the overall square footage of what's being shown for building coverage. Also previously in the other application, in front of this noted area to the right that says 1 story, there was also a little part of that was being used as a bathroom for the in-law suite, and there was a little bit of sunroom space pushed out in front. That also, for cost purposes, has been removed from the project. The changes from what was approved in April 2016 to now, previously the approved building coverage was 15.5%, with the allowable being 14%. That building coverage has now been reduced in this current application by 1% to 14.5%. So the square footage of what was approved prior was 3,110. What we're asking for here is 2,902.
Let me stop you a minute. I'm looking at the resolution from 2016, and what was approved then was 15% building coverage, correct?
15.5.
The resolution says 15%.
Resolution on page 1.
Because it says originally they requested 15.5, and as a result of board concerns, they revised their plan to eliminate the need for the front-facing garage in favor of an expanded rear-facing garage, and that reduced the proposed deviation from building coverage. So what was approved last time, let me just tell you,
You're
was
correct.
15% building coverage.
Right, it's 15.
And 31% combined side yard setback.
Correct.
Okay.
And the current now being asked for is 14.5%, with the allowable maximum of 14%.
Right.
And the difference between those two from a number standpoint, the allowable is 2,801, and what is being requested is 2,902.
What about the combined side yard setback?
The combined side yard setback,
Is that the same?
well, it's, the existing house itself is the same and not being proposed to be changed. Because we're no longer proposing to expand that single-story garage to the left-hand side, we no longer have the same increase. If we take the side of our new proposed addition and the side of that existing garage, we come up with that 39.9 feet, which is 34%. But the existing, as it stands now, with the two sides of the house, we are not encroaching any further into either yard.
Do you agree with that, Eileen?
Yes, sir.
So essentially what we're doing is we're maintaining the existing non-conforming combined side yard of 33%.
Correct.
My,
34?
That's being changed, but it's in a policy.
31%.
No, the existing is 33%.
Existing is 33%,
The previous application was 31%.
correct.
And what's
So here,
The proposed is 34%.
The proposed is the same, it's the same 33% it is currently,
33%.
why does it say 34?
because the new addition, we're
right,
taking the,
that's what I want to get to.
okay.
The existing dwelling
Mhm.
is 33%
Yes,
or 37.9 feet.
correct.
Now that 37.9 feet, the existing, is 17.1 feet on the left to the existing garage
Yes,
and 20.8 feet on the right to the existing one-story addition.
correct.
You have not shown us the setback of the addition. So that's my question. Show me where 39.3 feet comes from. I think it's 17.1, and the dimension on this new addition is something greater than 20.8 feet.
That is correct. The new addition on the right-hand side is set back from the corner of the existing structure.
So if I take 39.3 and I deduct 17.1, I'm going to get that dimension.
Correct, I think it was 39.9.
39, I thought you said it was 39.3 feet.
No,
That's what the application I thought said.
oh, did I misread it?
Yeah, the feet are given as identical numbers in the existing and the proposed, but I don't think that's not reflected in the
It's
in the
top of the
percentage.
page.
Yeah, the confusion, you're correct, I miswrote it, it's 39.3.
Okay.
Yeah, the confusion being in
You're
filling out.
measuring from the proposed addition as opposed to the existing. So the existing combined side yard setback measures at the point of the existing dwelling to the two side yards.
Correct, and that minimum
That is
dimension will
staying the
not
same.
change.
That's not changing.
Correct,
The only thing that's changing is when you build this addition, one side of the addition is going to be bumped in a little bit, so it's more conforming on the combined side yard setback than the existing.
correct.
Okay.
And that's what that differential was trying to show, is that in placing that new wall of the addition, the attempt was to make it as conforming as possible. But you're correct that the overall combined side yard setback is what it is currently, because that existing home or house is not changing.
Is the whole shaded addition two-story all the way across? Because it appeared to me when I looked at the plans that part of the addition on the right was only one story.
You are correct. The portion that is furthest to the right, and you'd be looking from the front yard, is a single-story piece.
Okay.
As is some of the portion along the kind of back end, and then the remaining portion is two-story piece.
Okay.
And this again is the same elevation that was in the application.
Any other questions of the witness by the members of the board? Any?
Just so that I'm clear, what is the setback of the neighbors on the right side?
Uh,
70 feet?
I I think it's 22.2 feet. If I take 39.3 and deduct
And subtract.
17.1,
Yes,
I come up with 22.2.
yes,
And that would be the setback of the addition on the right-hand side.
correct.
Questions of this witness from the audience? Statements with respect to this application from anyone in the audience? I hear none and I see none. I'll close the public portion of the meeting. I'll start the discussion by saying I wish that I had seen, and it's my fault, that this was a different application. Would have saved us a lot of emailing and phoning over the weekend.
Well, but we didn't have the benefit of the earlier application in front of us, so.
That's right.
See how I stick up for you?
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there anyone else on the board who would like to comment on this case? Is there a motion?
I move to approve, application 3663-18.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Good luck with the project,
Thank you.
and good luck with everything else.
Now you have a 365-day window to get a building permit, and that's by ordinance. Okay.
All right, Investors Bank. By the way, as you folks come forward, you can, and this is true of all of you, there are not that many people left in the
Right.
room, you can assume that the members of the board have visited the site.
I would hope so. Just gonna give us a minute to set up.
You want to swear the witness, please? Oh,
I'm the attorney.
You're the attorney, I'm sorry.
I was just letting him set up. Ready?
Proceed.
Thank you. My name is Clara Horelik, and I'm with the law firm of Clara T. Horelik LLC. I'm appearing today on behalf of the applicant, Investors Bank, with regard to variance relief in connection with a wall sign for 101 JFK Parkway, which is your Lot 3, Block 5302, on the tax map of the Township of Millburn. The subject property is in the OR1 zone. There are two variances that are being requested this evening. The first variance falls under section 609.10A of the Township zoning ordinance, which permits a maximum of 2-foot lettering height for wall signs. The applicant's proposed sign is 4.5 feet lettering height. And this will all be explained when we put up the boards and the gentleman with regard to the actual sign company testifies. The second variance falls under section 609.10D4B, which does not allow wall signs to extend beyond the second floor line or the roof line. The applicant's proposed wall sign would be above the 6th floor. This is a tall building, 6 stories high, but would not go above the roof line. The proposed wall sign is consistent with the bank's corporate branding for signage. It will be shown through the testimony tonight that the size and the location of the proposed wall sign is necessary for visibility and identification and a conforming sign for size and location would not be visible by motorists or pedestrians from the busy main roadway JFK Parkway due to the setback of the building and due to trees. And we certainly don't want to propose taking down those beautiful trees. It will also be shown that the proposed wall sign will be both in proportion with the facade of the building and consistent, or at least similar to other signage that's in the same lot and block and along JFK Parkway. Just to put this statement into some perspective for you, under your section 609.10A, the maximum wall graphic area that's permitted is 10%, and our wall graphic area is slightly under 1%. The specific details of the wall sign are going to be provided through testimony. The applicant Investors Bank, so that you're aware of what their position is, they lease the building, at least a majority of the building at the subject property, and this serves as their corporate headquarters. The applicant's lease itself gives the applicant the right to install one sign with its name on the east-facing facade of the top floor of the building. So that is being said to let you know that the application was with the consent and approval of the owner, who has also reviewed the proposed signage. The testimony is expected to support the need for this requested variance relief for this proposed wall sign, again, based on the circumstances that exist for this lot, and of course, how that affects visibility, identification, and the like for signage. It is our position that the granting of the variance relief to permit this proposed wall sign will not result in a significant detriment to the public good, nor will it substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan or your zoning ordinances. Appearing and testifying on behalf of the applicant tonight will be Grace Paulo from Investors Bank. She is project manager and design coordinator for corporate services, and Dennis O'Hara, senior vice president, NW Sign Industries, who is an expert in signage. At this point, I would like to call my first witness, which is Grace Paulo.
What was her position again with Investors?
Grace Paulo is the project manager and design coordinator for corporate services.
Thank you.
At Investors Bank.
The witness has to be sworn.
I do. Grace Paulo. Grace, Grace, last name Paulo.
Ms. Paulo, I already told the board your title, but if it would come from you directly, if you would let them know your title and role.
Project manager and design coordinator for our facilities department. I'm head of construction. I oversee construction projects and give feedback back to our corporate and our executive team in terms of where the project stands.
Okay. And in your capacity at the bank, are you familiar with the bank signage?
I am, yes.
And is the proposed wall sign in the bank signage brand, is this their brand?
Yes, this is our branding logo for the Investors Bank.
And is the proposed location of the wall sign at 101 JFK Parkway your corporate headquarters of Investors Bank?
Yes, that's the location.
Okay. And is the fact that Investors Bank is in that 101 JFK building, is that identifiable and visible from the JFK Parkway roadway?
The building is large, but we have no branding on the facility as it is now due to lease permitted lease requirements in the past.
And you're familiar with the lease between the landlord and the tenant, with the Investors Bank and your landlord?
I am, yes.
Okay. And I had spoken in my opening, but if you would tell the board, to your knowledge, does the lease allow for the signage that's being proposed?
Yes, it does. Due to a current amendment to the lease, we are now allowed to brand the facility where we reside.
And to your knowledge, the landlord has approved the proposed wall sign?
Yes, they have reviewed and approved the new signage, the proposed sign.
And to your knowledge, the landlord reviewed this application before signing the consent form?
Yes, they have.
I would ask you this. Based upon your experience with how 101 JFK Parkway is utilized, based upon the knowledge that this is the branding of the signage, Do you believe that a compliant sign with the lettering that's allowable, which would be 2 feet lettering, and only above the second floor, do you believe that that would meet the bank's needs?
That'll be not sufficient for the bank's needs. The lettering looks undersized for the size of the facility, and the branding would not be seen from the public street, the JFK Parkway.
I don't have any other questions for the witness.
Any questions from board members? I have just one. I'm looking at the sign proposal that was submitted with the documents, with the application, and I'm looking on page 6. Can you turn to page 6, please?
Page 6?
6, the last page. I see on the left-hand photograph, I see a sign. Is that sign there now?
It is not.
No.
Is there any sign on the building now?
There is
Any
no.
sign for the bank?
The only signage at the location is a small pylon sign that has all the tenants on it. Only after you pass the parking garage, you're at the front door.
There's nothing on the building?
Correct. There's no signage on the building.
How long have you been there?
Myself, I've been for the.
Now, how long has Investors Bank been there at this building?
At this location since 2004.
With no wall sign?
That is correct.
Has that been problematic for the bank?
We have our onboarding, all our new staffing from South Jersey to New York. That's their first location that they come to and report before they get hired. So due to the location and having our new staffing and members come to the location, they're looking for a number for the facility in order to get there.
Okay.
The page that Joe was referring to, page 6, where it says Investors Bank, on the left side of the sheet, that's what a sign that's in conformance would look like?
That is correct. That's what we believe is in conformance for the size and the ornament that it's in, and that's directly in front of the parking garage on that sign. So based on the tree lines and the parking garage, for us, that the staffing or the customer client would be already in front of the building by the time they saw the sign.
Is on 6th floor, is Investors Bank occupying the 6th floor?
We are not, but it is permitted by the building landlord to allow us to brand the facility at that location.
How many other folks are leasing this building? How many other renters are there?
This, I believe, included the bank, there's 6. The proportion are smaller
So
for the lease.
If all of them were to make this request to put their signs on the 6th floor of the building,
As part of our lease agreement, we requested that the landlord only permit us to brand the facility.
If I may, I do have, if you wanted this one section entered as an exhibit, I do have a copy of the lease amendment with me. You would not run into that issue because this is very specific with regard to what it states. As to other tenants, hold on 1 minute. There's actually a section here.
Page 5.
I know, I'm getting there. It's in this one. Okay, hold on. Okay, which actually says, you'll forgive me, but it's been highlighted, so it's a little hard to read. Building signage shall be an exclusive right of the tenant, that's this tenant, Investors Bank, on the east-facing facade of the building, and as such, landlord shall not be permitted to grant other tenants of the building the right to install signage at the east-facing facade of the building. And this is the location that this is being proposed. And it says in the earlier section of the lease that this tenant shall have the right to install one wall sign with the tenant's name on the east-facing side, and it says at the top of the building.
When is that dated, that document?
This is their newest amendment. It's dated the 17th of September, 2018.
And then how long is that for, that conditional lease? That lease you have right there, how long is it for?
I believe it's the amendment was for I'm not sure if it's a 15 or 20-year lease.
Okay.
I didn't have the specifics on.
You have an amendment here and not the lease itself.
Correct.
Right, well, let's mark that copy of that amendment,
A1?
A1.
Yeah, it's split in 2 pages.
Is
so
that a
it's
copy?
the highlighted part.
Is that a copy that you can
Okay.
give us?
Yeah.
We'll give it to the clerk.
It may not be the easiest thing to read.
Okay.
That's okay.
You want me to mark it or you?
Any other questions of this witness? Anyone in the audience have any questions of this witness? Next witness, counsel.
I would like to call Dennis O'Hara from NW Sign Industries.
I do. Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-S, O'Hara, capital O apostrophe, capital H-A-R-A.
Mr. O'Hara, if you would be kind enough to tell the board your title at NW Sign Industries and your experience level.
I'm Senior Vice President with NW Sign Industries, located at 360 Crider Avenue in Moorestown, New Jersey, exit 4 of the Turnpike. And I've been in the sign industry for nearly a half a century. It'll be 49 years this year. I've served or appeared and given testimony to boards throughout New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, and Long Island. And I'm proud to say that I was a planning board member for 16 years in my community, 14 years as chairman. So I appreciate your efforts here, Mr. Chairman, and all the board members.
Mr. O'Hara, are you familiar with the Investors Bank signage branding?
I am.
Okay, and how long have you been making and installing signs for Investors Bank?
Investors has been a very valued customer of mine for over 30 years. My relationship dates back to when it was Investors Savings Bank. In the year 2011, they proceeded with a new branding to Investors Bank. We totally changed out over 85 offices during that time with the new Investors Bank brand for building signs, freestanding signs, directional signs, and whatnot. So I'm very, very familiar with the branding.
And the proposed wall sign for 101 JFK Parkway is the Investors Bank signage brand?
That is their brand as far as relationship of the symbol and the lettering and the colorization.
And when you say the symbol, you're talking about the eye weave, correct?
Yes, the weave. It's a two-colored green weave that is part of the brand.
If you would, what I'd like you to do now is to give the board the specs of the sign as to size, lettering, location, graphic area, this proposed wall sign, the details as it relates to the municipal ordinances. And I want you to include how it's going to be lit up, you know, what is the timing of the lighting, and really compare a compliant sign with what we're proposing to support the variances.
If I could, there was testimony about the location, parking garage, and whatnot. If I may, I'd like to show the board a site plan.
And Mr. O'Hara, is that identical to what the board has in front of them now?
Yes,
Okay.
just an expanded version.
Perfect.
So I can see it a little better. Investors Bank is part of 101 JFK Parkway. And from the park, the edge of the parkway to the building is 340 feet, 5 inches. It's a dramatic setback from JFK Parkway. And in front of the building is a multi-level, 2-story parking garage. And the tree line along JFK requires that the sign be up higher, just so it could be seen. I'll now show an elevation.
Mr. O'Hara, this is part of what was already submitted to the board?
Yeah.
This is identical.
Yeah, a bigger version. This is the east facade. We have over 16,000 square feet of building height.
It says south elevation. That's why I wanted to, at least the one in the package that shows the investor sign says south elevation.
You're correct.
And south elevation on sheet 1 is what faces JFK.
Correct.
So that was gonna be my question. The lease amendment allows a sign on the east-facing wall, and this plan suggests that it's gonna be on the south-facing wall.
It was my understanding when we created and designed the sign that it had to be visible from JFK Parkway. And this is where, and I apologize, but the lease says east elevation?
Yeah, but I can,
Or east
let me
side?
just speak to that. The landlord was presented with not only what the proposed sign would look like, but its location at the building. And I think that, obviously, for all intents and purposes, this was the intent of this amendment. And to put it on an opposite location actually doesn't serve its purpose, because there were meetings, is that correct, Ms. Paulo, that spoke to this particular location. So I understand exactly what you're saying about the elevation board, but actually to put it in a spot other than where it is currently being proposed
It's not
would
gonna be
defeat its
visible from
purpose.
JFK.
Exactly, which is the whole purpose.
I just wanted to point out that
You're correct.
the lease amendment says you have the landlord's permission to put it on the east-facing sign, but the proposal is to put it on the south-facing side.
But there's also been, subsequent to this lease, the meetings with the landlord, as well as the proposed application that was signed and consented to, as well as,
And good luck to you
the meeting.
getting that in the lawsuit.
well,
Okay.
anyway.
All right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Is what was submitted.
Good eye, good eye.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all looking at the
I
same thing.
missed that.
You've been consistent all night. But again, this is a blow up of what you have in your
Right.
packet. And this is the south elevation. The east would obviously be here and not be seen by JFK Parkway. And this is the position of the sign. They will be LED illuminated letters. The weave is 4 foot 6 inches high, and the B in bank is 40.5 inches, as shown on your drawing packet. The overall spread is 33 feet, so if you take 4.5 times 33, you come up with about 148 square feet of signage. The letters will be, as I mentioned, LED illuminated. During the day, the lettering is black, and you see the two-color green weave. At night, Investors Bank becomes white, and the two-color weave is illuminated in their colors.
And this is also already in your.
Right, mm-hmm.
Not only are the letters going to be face lit, but there's going to be a silhouette of white around the weave and around each letter. The letter will be projected off the wall 1.5 inches to allow for some white light to silhouette each piece. Will be secured to the wall. I believe there might be some mounting details in your packet with non-corrosive fasteners. The power supplies that illuminate the sign will be behind the wall above the drop ceiling, and they will be wired to a 20 amp 120 volt circuit. It's low voltage LED, which is a green feature that we like to use, and most banks are using that now. Most corporations for illumination are using LEDs. I think it fits well on the building. And again, this facade is quite big. It's over 16,000 square feet, and 1% of sign is less than 1% of that.
Okay, Mr. Howard, let me ask you this question. Do you believe then that a compliant sign with the 2-foot lettering requirement and the second floor limit would benefit the bank or be visible or identifiable by
You
JFK?
wouldn't be able to see it from JFK because of the garage and the landscaping that's along JFK Parkway.
Okay, so in your opinion, let me ask you this. Do you believe that the proposed wall sign with the 2 requested variances overcomes the circumstances of the site and does cure that visibility and identification factor?
Yes, I do.
Based upon your experience with signs, and it's not just Investors Bank that you do signage for, it's other entities as well?
Correct.
Okay. So based on your experience and your many years of experience that you noted, do you believe that this proposed wall sign would be consistent with other signage in the zone?
Yes, I do.
And based upon your experience, do you think that the granting of these requested variances for this wall sign will result in any significant detriment to any of the surrounding businesses or to the public?
I do not.
And last question, do you believe that the granting of this requested variance relief for this proposed wall sign would in any way impair the intent of zoning
No,
or the zoning lines?
I do not.
I would like to just call back Ms. Paulo, who pointed out something from the reading of that elevation.
Okay.
Ms. Paulo, for you. Thank you, Mr. I don't have any more questions for Ms. Paulo. Regarding south and east,
If you refer back to the site plan, layout plan, there is a north arrow on that map. And the drawing, the site plan and the elevations from the previous architect were received after we realized the variance was needed for this application. So when referred to the elevation drawings on there, it refers to the south being the elevation is southeast elevation. When the attorneys were filling out the application for the lease amendment, the sun is on the east side and they refer to it as the east elevation.
so it's southeast.
It's a southeast elevation. The elevation drawings were done, back in 1981, if I'm reading that correctly, and they were hand-drawn. So those plans are referred to as the south elevation on that submission.
I don't have any other questions for either of my two witnesses.
Board members have any questions of Mr. O'Hara? I have one, Mr. O'Hara.
Yes, sir.
I saw somewhere in the application that a conforming sign was mounted on or superimposed on the building and found to be inadequate.
That's the last page of your
That's the last
package.
page, right.
Right,
Page
and I
six.
believe the young lady,
Now, my question to you is, was the proposed sign superimposed on the building as well?
That's what.
yes,
Yeah.
that's in your packet as well.
Okay. Now, and it was superimposed where it is intended to be placed, right?
Sheet 3.
Yes.
Which is on the top face, concrete face.
Correct.
We're
Was
looking
it?
at page 3 of the handout.
Yes, I'm looking at page 3. Was it superimposed anywhere else on the building, lower down, but higher than the first level?
No, sir. We wanted to get maximum exposure. If you come heading west on 24 and loop down to get on JFK, I mean, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
There's cars
sure
coming
is.
and whatnot. This exposure is clear. It's very clear. It's easily recognized. It'll give the motorist an opportunity to get over to the left to be able to turn in and make a safe at the light, go through the light from there. If we were any further down this end of the building,
No, I was
think he's
talking
talking
about
lower.
He means
vertical.
lower.
lower, this is ideal. It's at the top of the building. It makes sense that it be there.
Mr. Chairman, I would also just add that because of the way the ordinance is written, anything above the second floor would require the variance.
Oh, I'm aware of
Yeah.
that. But the request is for the top
Correct.
level.
Correct.
Any other questions from board members? Anyone in the audience have any questions of Mr. O'Hara? Any other witnesses?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience have any statements he or she would like to make with respect to this application?
I just have a question for the chairman after you vote, if it is approved, whether you waive resolution in these situations to proceed at our own risk?
We have
We-
not typically done that.
I don't think, I'm not even sure that the MOUL permits it.
I know of municipalities where, the board secretary has advised the construction department that it was approved and, the resolution has not been memorialized. That has not been the practice in Millburn.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, anyone have a comment?
So that lease is a problem.
Pardon me?
Sounds like that lease is a problem.
I think
It's
the
a
lease
problem
is a
for
problem
them.
for them. Yeah.
But it's end up being a problem for us. I mean, it sounds to me, as silly as it may seem, couldn't another tenant request a sign on another face of that building? I mean, as silly as it may seem, that could be done.
Well, that's right. The proffer by the applicant has been this lease provision, even assuming that, and I think this is what you're driving at, even assuming that the lease provision stated the correct facing of the building.
Assuming that, yes.
It's an agreement between two parties, not involving the zoning board. So, they could agree tomorrow to drop that restriction. I doubt that the bank would do it, but the bank could do it.
They would still have to come before the.
Oh,
If
yes.
they needed variance relief.
If they
They
need
would
a
still
if
need
they're not
variance
putting
relief.
it.
But if they
above
could
the,
put it
you
on
know.
the second floor, they don't need a variance.
They would have to
Second
comply
floor.
with they would have to comply with the wall graphics ordinance provisions,
So if there are
of which
five
there are
tenants-
several.
Right, all five of them could put it under.
I don't think this is relevant to that.
No.
Yeah.
They all have to come in front of us anyway,
That's-
so,
Pardon me?
they all have to come in front of us anyway,
Yes, that's
so.
If they need variance relief, they would have to come before you.
right.
But I think the point was that, a tenant could install a sign that is conforming. In
Right.
fact, 5 tenants could install
Yeah,
conforming signs.
potentially, five
Then
tenants.
they would never have, and they
But that
wouldn't
could
have to come before us.
happen, that could happen
It
anyway,
could happen
so,
anyway.
it's, that's not, it's not relevant, it could happen anyway.
It's gonna meet the maximum, it's gonna exceed the maximum.
The square footage of the investor sign,
They added up.
which, so it can kind of, so if
huge
you fit
building,
that in
but okay.
line, you're probably not, you know.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak, but it requires landlord approval as well.
Yes, well, that's what the testimony was, correct. Okay, my only comment is that this will be a bigger and more visible sign than any of the others down there. I drove down, in my view, and I looked at the Bloomingdale sign, which is nowhere near as high as this. And it'll be visible at night, but I think that on balance, I'd be inclined to approve it.
Well, the Dun & Bradstreet building has a sign like that, very much like what they're proposing.
That's true.
And Hilton Hotel.
And I have to say, that Hilton certainly does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to say that this bank building needs some identification. I had trouble finding it.
Yeah. It's hard to find.
It's right now, it's a blank slate.
Yes. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary McNabb?
Yes.
Craig Plattner?
Yes.
Joe Sherman?
Yes.
Joe Siegel?
Yes.
Wolfgang Torres?
Yes.
Jessica Glad?
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes. Good luck with it.
the board.
Thank you. All right, we have one case left, and there's one more recusal tonight. So we'll say good night to our
you.
vice chairman. Okay, before you begin, let me point out that these variances need a majority vote. We have only 6 members of the board here, but there's nothing we can do about it. Because under the law, the vice chair has made a determination with which I agree that she needs to recuse in this case. And we have only one alternate who is seated as a board member. We don't have another alternate on this board. So no matter when you present the case, until and unless the township committee appoint a second alternate.
Steve,
One more board member.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Steve is
That's
here.
true. We have one board member who's absent tonight. So, as I tell people who have a six-person board, you need 4 votes to be approved. And the missing board member cannot vote and cannot participate in the next hearing unless he, in this case, it's a he, listens to the tape of the meeting, or reads the transcript, and there will be no transcript. So he'd have to listen to the tape. Why am I telling you this? Because to get 4 votes out of 7 is easier than getting 4 votes out of 6. That makes sense mathematically. On the other hand, if you were to seek an adjournment tonight, there is absolutely no guarantee that all of the members who are here tonight would be here on the adjourned date. They might be and they might not be. It depends on illness, trips, planned vacations, etc. So it's really up to you as to whether you want to apply for an adjournment or proceed this evening.
I think we've waited 3 months.
And if you'd like a moment to discuss it, you're more than welcome to do that.
Are you here on this application?
I am.
Who are you?
Kerry Moriarty. I'm an attorney. I'm covering for Ron Gazarovski.
Okay.
Okay.
Couldn't be here tonight. We represent the Friends, who are the property owner adjacent to this application.
Okay.
We've hired an expert. Unfortunately, he had a conflict tonight, so isn't going to be here, but wanted to reserve our right to call him and present the evidence at the next hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question while we discuss. So since there's an opposition attorney who's requested that there be another hearing, will that be granted? So we'll be coming back to another hearing at any rate, is that correct?
Well, the application has just been made, and I don't decide myself on whether or not there will be, that request will be granted. It is only 9 o'clock. I don't know how long it will take for your client's case to go in. But generally speaking, if an attorney requests an adjournment to present a witness who's unavailable, that request is usually granted.
And that would be my recommendation.
And you could assume that it would be granted tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me?
That woman in the back, is
I
she?
don't know where, she's obviously with them, because she came forward. She's not with the applicant,
Oh,
she's
okay.
with the objectors. She came forward with them,
Oh, okay.
and they came.
She's not with you?
No.
Okay. You're just visiting?
I got the notice, I wanted to hear.
Oh, so you're here on
Okay.
this application? Okay. Just wanna make sure we didn't miss something here.
Mr. Keller, would you tell us what your relationship is
Yeah, I'm
with the
the
applicant?
planner and planner for the applicant.
Yes.
And we've had a brief discussion. The question becomes, the applicants would certainly like the opportunity to meet with the next door neighbor. They're new to the neighborhood, they purchased the property, but they've never lived there, so they'd like the opportunity to perhaps find a dialogue with the next door neighbors so they can understand what's going on. I know they're in Florida, but maybe there's a way we can come to some understanding, or at least we can share information and perhaps come to an accord. The question becomes, when would we be rescheduled for?
That's gonna be a
Well,
timeline.
before we get to that, I want to raise an issue with the applicant. I'm looking at a memorandum which was submitted with the application. I don't know who, and I don't want to embarrass anybody by asking who created it.
It was
But
a writer that
It
was.
was a writer, and I want to read from section 15A I, or A1. The east side yard setback is shown at a greater distance, 15.93 feet, end paren, than the existing house, which is currently at 13 feet, thus improving the side yard setback condition. Furthermore, this property line is adjacent to the South Mountain Reserve, meaning there are no neighboring houses. I read that and found that extraordinarily confusing and potentially totally incorrect. There are neighboring houses. There's one immediately to the left of this house as you face it. So,
Is that who your client is? Immediately to the left? God bless you.
Yes.
Oh, that's you?
that's you?
It's my parents.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So the, that statement is incorrect on its face.
Yeah, I didn't write that, but
I'm
clearly,
sure.
I don't think the intent was to, we have no neighbors. We clearly have neighbors on three sides. We don't have neighbors on that particular side yard they were discussing, but that would clearly be very clear in our testimony, who the
But
neighbors
let's
are.
find out from our board secretary what things look like. We have, because of the holidays this month, this board normally sits twice a month. This month, we're sitting only once. So let's find out what the agendas look like for the next couple of meetings.
The next available meeting is March 18th.
March 18th.
Correct.
The March 4th meeting is booked up,
5, yes.
March 5?
5 cases.
Oh, 5, it's March 4, 5 cases on it. And those people have all noticed already,
Probably.
I would assume.
Is your professionals available? I mean,
Do you know?
we're probably not gonna do this again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have a professional, you're gonna have to make sure whoever you're bringing is available for March 18th.
Why don't you do that? He may be at a meeting tonight.
He is at a meeting, that's the.
If we were to present tonight, do you feel comfortable making assessments on behalf of your parents, or?
No, because we hired a professional.
Yeah, I agree. It's possible.
But they would have to waive
Yeah,
waive
I
their
don't think
expert.
she's
It
like
doesn't
that.
sound like
All
that's
right,
going to happen.
why don't you folks move away from the microphone?
Super Bowl.
I don't think we turned it on for 5 minutes. We didn't. We didn't turn the Super Bowl on for 5 minutes.
Really?
You did what?
We didn't turn it on for even 5 minutes. Super Bowl.
Well, it was an extraordinarily boring day.
Horrible.
Horrible.
I was at a party with 70 people. By halftime, nobody was watching.
Okay.
I think it was the lowest,
Pardon me?
it was the lowest scoring
Okay.
game ever. And then the season was like the highest scoring season
All
ever.
right, we,
in football challenge.
if we put it off till the
March
second
18th.
meeting in March, he'll have to make himself available.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, it gives you plenty of opportunity to try and meet with council and the neighbors and see.
The frustration is that these notices went out over a month ago. They didn't go out 10 days ago, so we're a little frustrated to find out that they couldn't have had any expert available to come out. But we do understand if the board is disposed to giving them that courtesy, we'd rather do that.
We would not turn down a request for now. If you wish to proceed tonight to put your case in, that's up to you.
No, we'd like to try to liaise with the next door neighbors.
That probably sounds like a good idea.
Yep.
So we'll announce that the matter is going to be carried till March 18th. No further notice will be required unless
In
you
this-
increase or change the variances and increase them
And the
in any
meeting,
way.
meeting will be held in this room at the municipal building
At 7
on
p.m.
Millburn Avenue at 7 p.m.
Is there anything on that calendar?
Right now,
One small thing.
Well,
Okay.
this would take priority
Yeah.
anyway.
Let's move that. This will be first. March 18th.
Appreciate it, thank you.
I just want on the record, since my previous light, I did bring handouts of my
I'm
exhibits today, so I just
impressed.
wanted that on the record.
I'm impressed.
And now I'm going to bring one back.
Because it's a problem when I'm doing the resolution.
Is there any other?
So wait, so you'll be able to touch base, Carrie? Will you provide some contact information to Mr. Keller so he'll be able, okay, all right. Sounds good.
Is there anyone in the room who has a matter to bring before the board that is not on tonight's agenda?
Me.
Yes?
We had oral argument on, the appellate division matters in Vinegrad 1, and I call them Vinegrad 1 and Vinegrad 2. So we had oral argument in, Morristown and, before a 3-judge appellate panel.
Wow.
And, you know, they said, thank you very much, and you'll get our decision. And, you know, as many of you know, that could mean 3 weeks, it could mean 3 months, it could mean 6 months. We
Now,
don't know.
there are some of you who like to think, don't know what this case is all about.
Oral argument?
This is a case that was decided where an application was made for, by an architect and his wife to build a home across the street from the Paper Mill Playhouse up
January 15th,
on the hill.
right.
And the matter was heard by this board and was approved.
Went to the
Then
law
it- Then it
division.
was discovered.
No, wait, it went to the law division,
Okay.
and the court upheld the board's decision.
Then it was discovered, despite the fact that I specifically asked the question at the first hearing, that part of the property, that appears to be part of the property, was actually along the roadway across the street from the paper mill and was not included in the deed to the property.
See, here's what happened. The current property owner, Flamingo Builders, purchased this property in, like, I don't know, 2008, 7 or 8. And so he consented to the application by the Millers, who were the architect and who were going to build, they were contract purchasers, they were going to build this house, they were going to live in it. And so the Millers were utilizing the survey that Flamingo Builders got from 2007 when they purchased the property, and the title commitment that he had, the title policy. Unfortunately, after the law division upheld the board's decision granting variance relief, now the Millers hired their own surveyor, and they get their own title company to do a title search, and this new title company finds a deed by which a prior owner, not Flamingo Builders, somebody back in the 1980s, conveyed 313 square feet triangular strip along the front of the property to Millburn Township, and it happened to be that triangular piece where the retaining wall and the paved surface of Brookside Drive is, which we all questioned during the hearing. You know, it was odd that your property covers the street. So now what happens, Millers have to change their plans to shrink them to stay within the variances, but of course we always include a condition that says these are the approved plans, and you can't change those plans without a change in the conditions. So they had to come back before the board. The board upheld their request to amend their application to allow for this shrinking of the building to maintain the variances. Series of misadventures, because in between all of this, the township changes the manner in which steep slopes is calculated. So now they want to confirm that the steep slope variance that they got, the board is still prepared to honor that. Just everything that could happen happened. We go back to the law division upheld the board's decision again, and Mr. Weingrab took a second appeal to the appellate division.
Now, just let me interject, because these folks don't know, that the objector was a man who owns property on Marion Avenue, which is a street up on the hill,
Behind this.
parallel to...
Wasn't even that weird street that goes behind it?
Yeah.
That like weird horseshoe in there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I think that's where his house, like that, because like...
No, his
No,
house
his
was...
is Marion. The other, there
His
was
Mar-
another person on that little horseshoe
That's right,
street.
that over the top.
Yeah, but this...
He's right behind this
He's
property.
right behind, he owns property on Marion, and he looks down the hill and sees nothing now except trees, and now is very
And
upset
a roof, yeah.
that there's
Right.
gonna be a roof down there.
Right.
So, he's the one who's hired a lawyer
Right.
and is fighting our board with our board attorney, desperately trying to...
Well, actually, the Millers also have counsel. Rob Simon represents the Millers and has represented them throughout
Right.
the hearings and the law division matter and the appellate division matter. So, briefing was done. I did not file appellate briefs because I felt that was really not an expense for the taxpayers of Millburn to bear. So, you know, Mr. Weingrad's attorney filed appellate briefs. Mr. Simon filed appellate briefs. I wrote a letter, a statement in lieu of brief, just relying on Rob Simon's arguments, and only so that I could appear for oral argument. So we had this oral argument on January 15th, and I cannot tell you when we're gonna get a decision, nor can I tell you what that decision may be. Because you can't judge by, it appeared that the oral argument went in our favor, but you never know about these things. So,
All right, folks, there was no one who answered my call for any matters that are not on the agenda. As a matter of fact, there's no one in the audience. So we're free to go home at, well, it's about 20 minutes after 9. And
motion to adjourn?
is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.